Hey, this is Tim, and I'm recording my third fieldwork exercise. And for this one, I chose option 2, kind of a church event. One of the options was a new member class, and I thought that was interesting since we talked about it in Houston. And really, this is what we call Welcome to Grace. So it's a little bit before what would be the equivalent of a new member class. This was a getting to know you, getting connected for people who are interested in finding out more about the church. But even that was interesting because of us having to explain sort of the difference between being connected and being a member. Folks thought it was a member class, but really what we were trying to accomplish and what they were looking for was connection and relationship. So it really fit, and it was interesting to analyze in terms of the class. And so what I saw there, a bunch of staff and pastors. This was at our second campus, our biggest campus. It's really in a young area, and it's growing. So there was a lot of new people there, varying in age, mostly from, say, young married to older married. Some had been there because they'd driven by, saw the building was done, and want to see what it was about. Others had maybe come years and years ago or something, but everyone was looking to get connected. Get connected was the term they used. Now, there's some overlap between, did they mean serve in a ministry, or how to get connected to a ministry, or how to get connected to friends, say, in a group. So, and that's something I don't know that we're always clear about as a church anyway. So in terms of hospitality, we had they had really good food. They put out a good breakfast, name tags, which are always helpful as you're learning names. And it's cool that the church leaders there. So even at this campus site, the main church pastor was there, the executive pastor, and of course the campus pastor, and some others of us on staff. And I think that says something that in this small gathering, when you're new, that the senior pastor is there just hanging out. It is a little bit awkward to have food. If people wanted their kids in the children's program, they kind of had to come get food with them. But sometimes we don't always think about, if we feed the adults, what are they going to do with their kids? The other thing that was cool about hospitality that I saw was that the staff set the tone by getting food and eating. And that isn't necessarily about being selfish and, we get a free breakfast, but to have a bunch of food out and a bunch of people not eating it sort of sends the message this isn't for you. And so I think when the senior pastor walks in and he grabs a plate and gets some biscuits and gravy, that sort of sets the tone that, hey, we're hanging out and this food is really here to be eaten. So and everybody there is super, super warm and welcoming, so very hospitable. In terms of truth telling, we shared the story of grace. We talked about who we are as a church, and in that we're honest. I don't think we do a complete sales pitch of how this is amazing, but it is a welcome class. It is a sort of a first step into the church, and so we want to be sort of clear and positive. I think when we get into what would be our equivalent of our member class, or what we call covenant communities, when we reflect a little bit more like we talked about in Houston, this sense of, I'm going to try and talk you out of this a little bit, make sure you understand the seriousness of it. But I don't think we're fake, so I think we're honest in our presentation of who we are. In terms of promise keeping, like I said, we're honest, but if there's a problem, it's that we don't have a clear next step. And so they felt some cards with some follow-up, and there's some promise keeping, but looking at it through the lens of the class, wow, it would be great to have a clear next step. We make a promise. You take this step. Here's all the things, the way the church will respond, and can make them a pretty strong promise if they make another step. So some of that, but I thought we could do more. In terms of forgiveness, maybe a welcoming tone, that there's no sense of having to be anything other than you are. There's no test on your spirituality, on your beliefs, and so maybe come into this very welcoming, kind of different kind of church, offers forgiveness from past hurts of other church experiences in the way we present, and but again, kind of it's a little servicey. In terms of Christian formation, I think one of the things that we did, and I got to actually be the one to share about it, was just as we share about different parts of the church, we talk about sort of the roots of where that comes from. We talk about being a three-stream church with sort of mainline and evangelical and charismatic backgrounds, and but for instance, I got to speak about worship, and for the tone-deaf youth pastor to do it, I got to explain that we believe worship is more than singing, and that we want to wrap the entire experience around the idea that's being communicated through Scripture, because we believe Scripture communicates ideas. So there was some spiritual formation, even in talking about who we are, and then gratitude. I think people were gracious. We had gratitude that we were kind and created this space for them to come, and that the staff gave up, and some of the significant staff gave up a lot of energy to be there. We all who were there walked away with gratitude for who we are as a church. That just happens when you spend time sharing about it. There's also a lot of elders there, which is cool to see. These elders are not just wanting to meet and make decisions, but they're really engaged as leaders of the church, servant leaders. So the elders there was great. And then in terms of testimony, I think that happens. The campus pastor relates his story of coming into that role with the growth of the church, and so that happens around the tables. We all kind of share our stories of how we ended up at the church. So there's some testimony to that, and again, it's staff and elders and these new people. So we're really sharing our story and the story of God together. And like I said, in terms of group spiritual direction, I'm not sure that happens, but I do believe people are looking for it, and that could represent in a more next tangible step. I think we as pastors sometimes can forget that a simple next step is spiritual direction to someone who's just trying to figure stuff out. And so something as simple as, here's the next thing you do to get more connected to this church and more connected to Jesus, is the kind of spiritual direction people at this class are looking for, and we could have done more of. So it was great. I've loved being at these things that are somewhat familiar. I've been at the church a while, but processing through the lens of community with the way we've been processing it as a class has been really powerful and eye-opening. So anyway, that's number 3.